hope everyone had a good break. And I know we're going to have to wake up just a little bit. We had some food. Hopefully coffee will kick in just a second. But to start, I would like to begin with a request to you all. In this digital age where we're constantly distracted, our attention's being pulled to our phone, our attention's being pulled to fancy slides and different pictures and new news releases about AI constantly bombarding us, pulling our attention away from ourselves. My request to you is for the next 20 minutes to simply be here in this moment with me. For the next 20 minutes, I just want you to be a human. That's it. Because, as you heard me say earlier, ethics is something innately human. So before we can begin to understand how to bring ethics into our technology, we first have to be human and understand what it means to have ethics as a person. So, 20 minutes, we think we can do that. Focus here. Perfect. So, raise your hand if you work in technology, if you've worked with AI, if you want to work in AI. I'm going to ask you guys to participate, so we got a good mix here. All right, how many of you have heard of AI ethics? Raise your hand. Cool, we got a good mix. I'm a little bit blind, so I'm kind of counting that you're participating right now. How many of you believe that it is essential for us to include our values in the technology that we're creating? Raise your hand. Good mix. Okay. Last question. How many of you have worked with an ethicist? I got one. Thank you. I'd like you to take a moment and consider for a second there. We have the majority of you raising your hands saying you work in technology. We have the majority saying that you believe in the importance of having ethics in our technology. But we had one person raise their hand saying that they've worked with an ethicist. Ask yourself the question, why is there such a large gap? Also, we're going to fix that. I'm an ethicist. We're going to do a little work together here today. So by the end of this talk, everyone gets to raise their hand that they've worked with an ethicist. How does that sound? Good? So in order to engage with ethics, we need to understand what is ethics. Big question, right? You hear it, you hear ethics all the time. You assume that you understand what it is, but ethics is something that we as humans do on a day-to-day basis on the subconscious level. In order to bring ethics into our technology, we need to surface that subconscious, literal processing that we do. So I have 3 points that I want to talk about what is and isn't ethics. First, ethics is a decision-making tool. Our life and our technology exist on a spectrum. On the one hand, we have the dumpster fire. Everything's gone wrong, you've made terrible decisions, AI has taken over the world, et cetera, dumpster fire. We don't want that. On the other hand, we have Cloud 9. Not only have you prevented the dumpster fire, but everything's gone right. Everything, you're making headlines for being the best tool possible, or you have this huge advance in our understanding as humans and technology. You have Cloud 9. Everything's gone right. Our life and our technology exist on this spectrum. Ethics is the tool that we use to understand where we are on this spectrum and what decisions we need to make to move from dumpster fire to everything's gone right. Ethics is used as a decision-making tool for risk mitigation. We are figuring out what could possibly go wrong, what do we need to safeguard, what risk mitigation do we need to put in place, but then also, what do we want to achieve? What values do we want to design for? What social impact, what good do we want to do in this world? These are the questions we're asking ourselves. And ethics is the tool that we're using to make those decisions along that spectrum. Another thing to stress here, I am an ethicist. I'm not here to make a decision for you. If you're choosing dumpster fire, that's your problem. You are going to have to own that. What I'm here to do is help support you in your decision-making, ensuring that you are fully informed and understanding of what decisions you are making and the actions you need to take after in order to put us more in the positive direction. So, point 1, ethics is a decision-making tool. Second point, a lot of times what happens is people get this feeling that ethics is an all-or-nothing endeavor. Black versus white. Either you're a bad person or you're a good person. That's it, nothing in between. This traps us in this false dichotomy that in order to be ethical in our tech or ethical in our practices, we are either bad, where we're not doing anything, or we're good and we're doing everything. That's not true. Again, this exists on a spectrum. We have decisions that are not as good or as strong or as value-based, or we have decisions that are well thought through and based on our values. Ethics is not this black and white, all or nothing endeavor. It's something that as long as you're trying, you're getting somewhere. And another point on this black and white mentality. Artificial intelligence, the field of technology, can be very black and white. Yes and no, binary ones and zeros. Ethics is gray. Ethics is notoriously gray. That means there are not always specific, clear answers. It's something that you constantly have to work on to understand. And it's okay to exist in this gray uncertainty. So, second point, ethics is not black and white. It's gray. And it's a good thing that it's gray because it allows us the ability to innovate and grow on our understanding. It allows us to trial and error and mature in our understanding as a society. Okay, third point. Well, I get this all the time. Ethics is a blocker to innovation. It's going to slow us down. It's a pain. It's going to take time. It's going to take resources. It's going to tell us no. I get sometimes as well, you're an ethicist. You're here to tell me no. You're going to tell me I can't do this, I can't do that. Well, this is the one time I'm going to tell you no. I'm not here to tell you no. I'm here to tell you, well, or ask you instead, is there a better way to do this? Is there another decision that we can make? Are we actually focusing on our values as we're making this decision? Is that part of that decision making? And when it comes to ethics being a blocker to innovation, let me give you this scenario. Say you're developing a feature for your AI product. You spend 6 months of time and resources, and you roll it out to the public, and you're all excited, and then there's the backlash. And you've lost customers instead of gained customers like you were expecting off of that feature. Because instead of spending, say, maybe a week in looking at the design of that feature, looking at the ethics of that feature, you skipped over that step and you went straight to designing. So you spent 6 months of time and resources, or you could have spent a week understanding what parameters you needed to design within. You have to toss out those 6 months. So when it comes down to it, ethics really isn't that time waster. It saves on the back end. Ethics works more as a guide. It's not stifling innovation. It's giving you road signs. It's giving you direction of where to point your creativity. And it's been proven time and time again that constraints on your creativity create and inspire greater innovation. Because instead of just having to design and innovate within, let's say, 4 walls, all of a sudden you have a 360 view. You have a 3D view of where you need to be designing, and you are elevating your creativity. So those are the 3 points about ethics. It's a decision-making tool. It's gray, doesn't exist in black and white. And it is an innovation stimulator, not a blocker. Okay, so we talked about what is and isn't ethics. We've got all a basic understanding. Well, as you heard me say earlier as well, one of the tools that I use quite often as an ethicist is something called a thought experiment. What this means, and what ethicists use thought experiments to do, is understand either how our values will look, how decisions will look like in action, or it helps us understand what values we're working with. It's basically creating, think of it like a computer simulation in your mind, but it's kind of like a computer simulation, and what you're doing is you're trying to understand, if I do A, will my result be B or C? Let's find out. So we're going to do a little thought experiment. So I need you to pay attention. There will be a quiz at the end of this. Well, actually, just a question, but I need you to pay attention as I tell you a story. So imagine you're a developer. You work for a grand university. It's one of the top leaders in technology, but you've noticed with your university that your student mental health is suffering. You've had an increase in suicides, you've had an increase in counseling, you've had this demand and this need that the mental health of the students of your university is suffering. Now you're a developer, and you've got access to all this data in the university, and you discover that, hey, guess what? You can actually help track the mental health of students by their library attendance, their grades, and their class attendance. By the way, that's real. You can actually track mental health just on those 3 data points. So you decide, well, I could create an app. I can create a mental health app that is tracking each of the individual students, and when there is a dip in mental health, it will send a text message and ask the student, are you okay? Or, hey, maybe go talk to someone, call your mom, go see your counselor. But a prompt to catch that mental health spiral before it happens. Cool, right? So the decision that we're working with here is, are you going to create that app or not? On one hand, you can create the app where you're focusing on the student well-being, you want to support the students, you think, wow, I can make something that will help with this mental health burden that's happening to the university. Or you can look at it from another direction and say, mental health is sensitive. That feels like an invasion of privacy. I don't think I should build that. I'm worried that the students are going to feel like their privacy is being invaded. Those are our two options. So consider for a moment, would you build it or not? How many of you, raise your hand, would build that mental health app? Cool. Look around the room. All right. How many of you would not build that app? Okay, look around the room. We have a split. What's happening here? This is called a moral trade-off. And this is something that when you're engaging in ethics, these are the kind of decisions that you will be making. What you're essentially doing by looking at this scenario is you're making a decision on whether or not to prioritize privacy or well-being. So those of you that said, yes, I would build that app, you are prioritizing well-being as the prominent value. Those of you who said, actually, I don't really want to build that app, no thank you, you are prioritizing privacy as the primary value. Now here's the plot twist. There's no right answer. I'm sure you're kind of frustrated hearing that. You're like, come on, I want to have an answer. I want to have a clear direction. There's no right answer, but there is a right action to follow. So if you made the decision to build the app, you need to understand that you are prioritizing well-being, and therefore you need to put in safeguards to ensure that the privacy of the students is still respected. You need to ensure that the students are willingly contributing their data. You need to ensure that the proper cybersecurity effects are in place to ensure no data hacks or breaches. You need to ensure that that information that's being collected is not fed back into the students' grades, creating a cycle. Or if you chose to not build the app and prioritize privacy over well-being, you need to then put in efforts into making counseling more widely available, or creating mental health events for the students to go to. So you're not trading off completely, but you're balancing between the two. This kind of decision This is what you are working with when it comes to ethics. You're making this decision on what values do I want to prioritize and how do they work with each other. Now, I have another question for you. How many of you thought about the technology when you made that decision? Raise your hand. Were you thinking about the data set, the model architecture, feature design, scope, specs? A few, yes. But really, did that have any direct impact on your decision? You could really have any data points or any model architecture. You made that decision off of the people. You were looking at what would this effect have on the people. See, the interesting thing when it comes to ethics, 9 times out of 10, the problems that we're facing in our technology are based in the people and the process that is creating that technology, not the technology itself. So for example, you have a system that is biased, let's say racist. You have a racist system. That racism can be traced back to the data set, but what's that data set built on? Where did that come from? That data set is a reflection of how we in a society function, how we labeled that data, how we structured that architecture. It's based on people. Remember how I asked you at the beginning to have a moment of focus, to be human? Well, I asked you that because we can't make any decisions around the ethics of our technology if we don't first understand the ethics of ourselves. If we don't understand what we are reflecting in our society into our technology or trying to balance. We can use technology to help us be better, but we need to understand how and in what ways. So, this is all well and good. We talked about what ethics is, did a little ethics project. Why should you care? At the end of the day, why should you care about ethics? Well, let me put it this way. I don't care if you care. I know, scandalous. I don't care that you care. I care that you act. There's a difference between caring and action. There's a difference between talking about the importance of ethics and doing something about it. So let me rephrase that question. Why should you care enough to act? Much better question. There's this phrase that drives me crazy, but there's this phrase that says, if being ethical was profitable, everyone would do it. If being ethical was profitable, everyone would do it. This makes the assumption that ethics isn't profitable, and it can even be costly to your business. Well, I think it's a shame then that we've had research, proven research, from MIT, Stanford, and Oxford in the past 5 years alone that have proven ethics leads to 10% annual growth rate on top and bottom line year over year. Ethics leads to a 50% increase in product quality around your technology. Ethics creates a 43% acceleration rate in your innovation. So, if ethics is profitable for your company, why isn't everyone doing it? I want to rephrase this again. Since ethics is profitable for business and AI and society, why haven't you started yet? Now I'm going to leave on one last point, and I heard there's entrepreneurs in the room, so this is always a fun question for me to ask. How many of you believe that AI is changing the world? Raise your hand. I'm assuming that most everyone's going to raise their hand from this event. Okay. How many of you have chosen your profession or your career path, or are looking to, for the students in the room, have chosen their direction, their career path in life because you want to make your corner of the world, however small or big it is, just a little bit better? Raise your hand. So with AI, we've already changed the world. And we didn't really like what we changed. Now we're looking at it going, oops. We know now the capacity and capabilities we have to change the world. And we all want to make it just a little bit better. So I challenge you to walk away today and ask yourself, do I understand how I'm changing the world? And can I make it just a little bit better? Thank you.
Great presentation, thank you. Let's have a seat and talk a little bit about ethics, please. A lot of questions from the audience, but as you know, we are running late, so I will just pick some of those, and I will add one or two from my part. I have advantages being an organizer. One of the recurrent questions that I'm seeing in our feed is, how do you reconcile the conflict between ethics and the need for money, the need for profit? Okay, the basics of capitalism, let's say. How do you convince, an entrepreneur that is dreaming of making a big exit very fast, maybe to retire at 35 years old or 40, tops, because this is the classical theoretical dream sometimes in the startup world, to, okay, postpone maybe 10 years or more this moment by taking into consideration the ethical part of the business that is not profitable. On the contrary, there are many situations where ethics are hurting the financial reports.
So, a couple of things here.
Yeah.
First off, ethics should always be incorporated. It's not something that you do on the side or a specific project on the side. It's something that is a part of your design and your development processes.
So if you're a tobacco company, you cannot turn ethical overnight?
No. It's very difficult, actually, to go from 0 to 100, which is why I was saying ethics is not black and white. It's something that you slowly, over time, you build up the capacity for, you build up the processes, the skill set in your teams. So it's something ingrained in the company. Another point here is, we'll look at on a big picture, and then I'll give you two very practical points why you should care, again. But when you're looking at the bigger picture, when you make decisions around profitability and ignore the impact, ignore the ethics, you're making very short-sighted decisions. Mm-hmm. When you're looking at the bigger picture of what impact is this going to bring on society, what ethics, what values am I bringing to life, that's long-term thinking. Mm-hmm. You are creating long-term sustainability for your company when you are embedding ethics into really the DNA of your business, of your products. And two practical points here, because of course we all need a reason to do something. Well, as an entrepreneur, you are either going to face market pressure, especially with the younger generations. Having purpose, having values is a deciding factor. We have markets flooded with AI solutions. The differentiator is now ethics and responsible AI. And then from the opposite direction, when you are selling into enterprise or larger institutions, there are now requirements around responsible AI and ethics, and you have to prove you are doing something. Depends on the company who you're selling to, depends on their due diligence process, but this is the new standard for development.
Sam Altman, OpenAI, said, for-profit is too much, non-profit is not enough. Sounds good, but I'm not sure this is doable, because it's something like, it's the opposite of the human nature. Humans are greedy. Humans want more and more. If you have 1 million, you want 3 million. If you have 3 million, you want 10, and so on and so forth. Do you think that the capitalism maybe is needing an upgrade, or should we start a conversation about having laws, maybe, like to cap the profits, to cap the personal fortunes? what's the solution? Because, okay, sounds good. Let's be ethical. Let's be good. Let's create value for the world. But when you are going back at the office and you see, okay, I have to pay salaries, taxes, and so on and so forth. So maybe I will be ethical from Monday on because now I have to pay this and I have to do this deal and so on and so forth. What do you think?
It's a trap that we easily fall into where we pit ethics against capitalism, for example. I do think that capitalism could use a little bit of an update. That's a side point, but something, a line of thought that I've really appreciated that's grown in terms of support in the past few years is transitioning from the bottom line, a single bottom line, to a triple bottom line. What that means is right now we're judging success based off of profit. That's our one bottom line. All of our decisions are made off of profit. There's an idea that we can shift actually to a triple bottom line, people, planet, profit. And the idea there is instead of making decisions that solely benefit profit, we have to take into consideration people and planet. So we can't make a decision that increases profit but is detrimental to people and planet, and vice versa. You get the balance between all of them. We really do have to change at the fundamental level our definition of success on a societal level, to be able to incorporate that balance. So it is something quite difficult that we're facing.
Well, it's a long way.
Yes.
I've mentioned at the beginning of this event the fact I mentioned in Romanian, so I have to translate it. That maybe very few people are aware of the fact that we are already being victims of a non-ethical automation and non-ethical deep learning and machine learning because what happens in the social media, especially on Meta's platforms, because they created this algorithm to maximize the impact of any message. Can be a danger message, or can be a commercial message, or can be whatever message, a picture of my cat, for a maximum reach and the smallest investment possible. So, and that's why we are victims now of this misinformation, because everybody is running for profit, and that's why they are creating clickbait news, fake news, because they are profitable. Somebody is paying for this traffic. And that's why, for example, here in Romania, we started an initiative that is called Ethical Media Alliance, ethicalmedia.eu, if you're interested, where we are trying to redefine a little bit the model, because it's a real danger for people also. But I have to confess, it's very difficult, because the model is somehow against the core business model of any media network today. Do you really believe that we can redesign the whole economy having those ethics at the foundation of this new potential world? And how long, realistically, do you think this will take us?
So I spend half of my year in San Francisco, in the heart of Silicon Valley, with all of the innovation talk. And frankly, I think we're stuck. We're stuck with the same business models, the same applications. We haven't seen true innovation in about 10 years. So when we first had this rollout of advertising business model, it was really exciting. Now we've seen the impact of it. We're stuck on it. It's the default. If we're going to move forward either on a business level or a technological level, we have to reinvent these business models. We have to reinvent these revenue models. And so we're at a point in time where innovation has stalled, and I'm very bold in saying this, but innovation has stalled. It's time to reinvent. We're moving past the move fast and break things. It's time for a new era of innovation, and I firmly believe that the core of this new era of innovation will sit squarely within ethics.
Yeah, let's hope that this will happen. I can sit here and talk for hours with you about that, because it's one of my main, let's say, interest points in the last years. And I really hope that more voices like yours will rise, and I really hope that more responsible CEOs will take action in this direction. And why not regular people, so-called employees? How about not doing anything for money, because there is enough space under the sun to do it ethically and to do things that are good for people, not only good for a shareholder or a corporation. Thank you very much, Olivia.